Hello there, everybody. It's Christian, and welcome to your first lesson. So, today I thought I'd break down the basics of one-point perspective for anybody who doesn't understand it yet. Hopefully, after today's video, the concept will make a lot of sense to you. Alright, so I'm going to do this tutorial here using Photoshop. Try to make this 10 to 15 minutes long for your convenience, for mine as well. Standard cube, okay? How do we draw a cube when we're drawing it in 3D form? We always start with a cube. And we do this, right? And we say that's a box, right? Easy enough concept to understand when we're looking at that box in 3D. We're looking at three sides of it to give the illusion that it's sitting there in 3D space. Now, the concept of perspective is going to help you to successfully map out the proper volume, shape, and the vanishing areas of this object here sitting in 3D space. Okay, when we draw, we want to imagine that the white is a 3D space. We as the illustrator, we as the creator, we're choosing where the point of view is. We're choosing where we want our audience to focus in on, okay? And like I've said before, perspective is just one of those tools that's going to help you to master that, okay? Like I said, we're using 1-point perspective. Perspective. 1-point perspective, okay? So this line that I've drawn here is actually your horizon line. So what this represents in every canvas, okay, is where the perspective point or your vanishing point is where you're going to make the focal direction, okay? So if it's up high, we're probably going to be looking either on level or down at something, okay? If your horizon line is low, alright, again, you could be looking level at something if that's where you want the perspective, or you could be looking up at something, okay? Those points from your vanishing point, they're going to come up and they're going to come down, and they're going to fray everywhere in between, alright? That's 1-point perspective, and now I'll show you how it applies to the box that we drew in the beginning, okay? You can move that point anywhere too. So I'm just going to erase all of this, and I'm going to use this original line up here with my horizon line up here. I'm going to put my vanishing point, and I'm going to start to draw a grid. Alright. To do this in Photoshop, drawing straight lines, all I'm doing is using the brush tool, making a point, holding shift, making another point, and I'm able to draw a straight line. In case you want to do these exercises in a Photoshop or some digital program for, for ease. The horizontal lines that are going to run parallel with your horizon line are going to be our furthest edge of the cube and the one closest to us, okay? And another thing to note when we're drawing this cube in this particular setting, we're drawing our vertical lines straight up and down as well. And that's only based off of where this perfectly flat horizon line or horizontal line is in respect to where our vanishing point is. Okay? So, back to the lesson. Here you have the cube. Okay? We'll extend these out. So, I've just made these three vertical lines. 1, 2, 3, in accordance to the cube shape I've formed in perspective up here, okay? Now, if I want to figure out where this point meets this point as we draw through the cube, okay, or if I want to find out where that point meets, I'm just drawing that point right back to my vanishing point. And somewhere inside of this box is that meet point, so it's right about there. And again, like this line right here, it's going to be parallel with my horizon line, okay? And lastly, we're going to go over to my final point here. I'm going to draw that back to my vanishing point, okay? So I connected that dot to my vanishing point on my horizon line. As you can see, that point almost perfectly lines up here with the corner I've made on the inside of the box here. I'll just draw that kind of hollowed out. So now you have a shape, okay? And you've used 1-point perspective to properly figure out where it resides in 3D space, okay? We know our closest is right in the front here. And if I take away all these see-through lines, okay, you should just have your solid form sitting there. And you're left with your cube in 3D space drawn in 1-point perspective. Okay, and you can frame that box now, right? And you have an image that, without any rendering, without any hatching, without any drop shadows or anything, you have an image with some believable and accurate 3D form, okay? And from there, you can detail it to your liking, you know? Now, I stress to use perspective in conjunction with eyeballing as well, okay? So in this instance, if I'm making flaps on this box here, maybe instead of drawing this perfectly in line with where this this vanishing line is going to go somewhere up here, right, where our horizon line is, I'm going to cheat it and kind of taper it in a little. You see how these work? That's literally how everything really works in 3D space. Now, if you want to cheat, which I wouldn't advise doing until you really understand this concept, but essentially what I've done can be done in a cheating method as well. If you know there is a slight fray between the way that line goes and the way this line goes, excuse me, that maybe these two are eventually going to meet up somewhere off the page, okay, then you can cheat that illusion of them coming towards you, you know? Does that make any sense? I hope that makes sense. You could do the same with this line here. You could kind of say, alright, well, it's going to be right about there, you know, and then this is eventually going to meet up with the rest of these ones here. Those are all meeting up somewhere off the page, okay? And even in cheating the perspective on this box, it's not that hard to cheat it because, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, where the horizontal lines are concerned, unless they are receding in space, okay, going to that vanishing point, they are going to either line up with the horizon line you've set for yourself, or, like I mentioned before, they're going to run straight up and down vertically, okay? You want to keep 1-point perspective reserved for a shot like the one I've illustrated over here, okay? You want to keep it so that the focus is really on one point of what you're trying to showcase, okay? You can use this with heads. You can use this with anything you're doing a close-up shot on. I would definitely use a 1-point perspective grid chart, okay? I don't want to go too far because I don't want to convolute the lesson. This in itself is enough to understand. Okay, just completing a box in 3D space. Get used to drawing like that and creating your objects using one-point perspective. And I mean, you can use this. We'll do something a little more complicated here. Kind of a more of a rectangular shape this time. And I want to make like a not a hard-edged item in this particular instance, but a softer edged one, kind of like maybe a vase or something. And I want to illustrate for you how I would do that. So in this 3D form, if I am drawing a vase, okay, let's see, I'm going to see the top of it, right? I'm almost going to actually see the inside of it a little bit. Now, you don't have to worry about all these details I'm going to throw in here. I'm going to do this quick so I can make an example of how I would use one-point perspective to illustrate an object, and how you can always use one-point perspective to illustrate an object. But if you're to go through this vase here, I'm just doing this from my head, by the way, and actually, you know, work those ellipses in conjunction with how it's falling into the shape of the box, you could almost literally just use silhouette to get your drawing kind of how you want it, okay? And then you can kind of correct as you go here. This would be out like so, and coming in, and then down again. And that next ellipse would be kind of like right here. You see what I'm saying? And then that other one would be coming out, like it'd be curling here and wrapping around as it comes and wraps around inside. Okay, and I know it's hard to understand, but I'm actually using those guidelines here to figure out where those overlaps and tuckaways are going to be. Alright, so now you kind of got this vase shape. Alright, all those lines that I'm drawing, they're all underbellies of an ellipse, which are being overlapped by the design of the vase. Okay, comes down, comes up and over, down, maybe it comes back up, you know, and you just kind of sit there and you play with it until it looks right. You get the angles right. Now, if I was to sit and trace that, or take away all the guidelines, let's just trace it real quick, just for the sake of the lesson here. So, you got your first ellipse right here. These are not perfect ellipses. I am hand gesturing these in, by the way. Alright. And these overlaps are telling you what's in front, what's behind, and I'm using these guidelines from my perspective grid to tell me where those lines are going to start to curve more dramatically. Like if this was a shape, there'd be like a contour line coming in here, coming in there, you know, going in, coming out, coming in, and then these lines beside, they're actually coming up and wrapping around. I'm using one-point perspective to do all of this, okay? And this is like the eyeball part I was kind of referring to in the beginning. You want to get familiar with using your perspective and also eyeballing things and trusting that, you know, that this is a guide, not a, you don't absolutely have to have perspective in there, but the perspective principles need to be there in order to pull off the effect, right? Because that's what you're doing. You're an illusionist, all right? You're tricking someone's eye into believing something has form, that something is sitting somewhere in 3D space, and that it, you know, it's doing something. So I'm going to just play with this contour line a little bit more. It's not perfect by any means, and you can go in there and fix it up if you want. But I've pretty much used one-point perspective to construct this vase here, okay? And like I made the point before, if I was to take this and frame it, you know, and create a composition out of it or something, maybe there's a book on the table, you know, here, I'm going to use my cheating perspective. This book is somewhere in 3D space going to a point here, you know what I mean? That's kind of what's happening. You can just do this stuff all over the place, people, and once you get comfortable with it, there really is no limit. It's like you've seen 100 videos online, the power of perspective. Well, they are not kidding you. This is like the the founding work that you know. I don't know. It fixes everything. There you go. Some flowers in a vase. But there you go. You have a composition. You've used 1 point perspective. You know what I mean? And from there, your object should start to make a lot more sense. You know. Anyways, and you can get real technical with how everything actually fits in there. You could get real technical, but this is the general idea. Okay. So there you go. 1 point perspective. I hope I made some progress in your drawing experience, and take those lessons. Let me know if they help you at all. Have a great day. Thanks.